We have built a model of a chimney to show you how to flash around any sort of penetration. We will not be sealing our model today, but normally all of these flashings would have sealant underneath them before we installed them. When cutting around any kind of penetration, be it a dormer, a chimney, air conditioner, duct, whatever, we will flash all the way around it. On the first piece of flashing, we will leave about 2.5 inches overlap on both sides. We will cut a little half V in the face so that it will lay down on the roof surface. We will then press this open just enough to create a pressure bend so that it'll stick nice and tight to the chimney. This is where we would put a generous coat of sealant, and we will nail 4 to 6 inches on center. On the side piece of flashing, we will line it first up right to the edge of the first lock. Then we'll give ourselves about a 3-inch lap and mark the vertical line of the back of the chimney. Then you'll cut up to this 3-inch lap. Next, we will cut along the crease of the flashing to the vertical mark and make a little slit. Then we'll cut off some of the excess and we'll miter this back to make a tab. This tab will bend around the back of the chimney. Now we will set it into place, and we will cut the front or the bottom crease just enough to allow it to bend into the flashing around the corner. And we'll nail this into place. Now, of course, on a real roof, we would have put a generous amount of sealant on this before we laid this down. We like to pry this Z-lock up a little to make sure that the flashing sits back tight against the brick. Now let's quickly review this process on the other side. First, we line up the lock flush with the Z-lock, mark the vertical line of the back of the chimney, and mark a 3-inch overlap. Now we'll cut down the crease to the vertical mark. Make that little slit so that it'll fold. Cut off the excess, miter back the face to make a tab, bend it along that vertical line, and set it into place. Now we'll cut the front or bottom of the flashing up to the crease to the corner of the chimney. We'll bend that around flat. And then we'll nail it in. Here we come to the trickiest cut you will probably make. Put your shingle into place and mark it where it will tuck into the side flashing, and then mark the horizontal line where it will tuck into the front flashing. And we'll cut out our little rectangle and we'll make a nailing tab. Here he makes about 1.5 inch nail tab. Now, because it has to go into this one and over this one at the same time, we will cut a line approximately back to where the nail flange comes in. Now make sure you catch all of your locks before you snug this one into place. This is a little bit tricky. You should be able to do it. This is probably the trickiest you'll be doing on any of the end wall flashings. And be sure and nail right into that end wall flashing. What this does is it allows any moisture that gets into here to come down and run over the shingles. When placing a shingle behind the chimney, set the shingle down lock to lock and mark the edge of the end wall Z-lock. And also, like the front of the chimney, you'll mark the back of where the chimney comes in. And then you'll cut out your little rectangle. Now you're going to want to make a 3/4 inch cut right here, so that this piece can slide into as well as jump over the end wall flashing. We're going to slide in and then let that float right over the end wall flashing. And we'll leave this one unnailed until we get to the other side of the chimney. An easy way to measure where we need to cut is to turn the shingle upside down. It's just a quick way to measure. As you cut this top lock off, then it will slide right into the end wall flashing. Now there are very few places on this system where we have an exposed nail, and this is one of them. Later we will seal this with our matching color silicone. Now this side, the shingle pattern broke right at the flashing lock. But that's okay, we just nip off this little tab, and we still have a 1/2 inch of this side lock that we can bend out and lock into the end wall flashing. Now next we are going to mark our tricky slice. We need to bend up a nail tab as well. And we'll catch all of our locks before we slide this up into place. Snug it up and nail it into place. Remember to nail into the end wall flashing as well as the nail tab on this one. Now here is where your half marks are really important, because now you have no reference point. Here is your half mark. And if you have been consistent on staying on your half marks, then you'll have no problem when it comes into tying it into the back of the chimney. Again, Kevin can quickly measure where he needs to cut by slipping the shingle upside down and cutting right where it needs to slide into the flashing. And he cuts himself a nail tab and sets it in, making sure that it lines up with the half mark. Snug it into place and nail it in. The next shingle, when we line it up with the half mark, doesn't quite go in all the way to the end wall flashing. Now we're just going to open up this side lock and cut ourselves a nail tab. And that gives you just enough to lock in. Check your half marks and then nail it in, both in the nail tab and in the end wall flashing. Now let's review going around the back. We will mark the back of the chimney. Then we'll line it up with our half mark and mark where it would tuck into the flashing. We'll cut out our excess and make that little slit so that it will slide into as well as jump over the Z-lock, like so. Now, since we have to make this match in the back, before we lock this one into place, we will need to open these locks just a bit so that we can help them lock together. As we set it into place, make sure that the little tab goes under the next lock. And then press it down tight. Now we can nail them into place. Put the final shingle here behind our chimney, and we are ready to back flash our chimney. Here we are using the same metal we use in the valley for back flashing. You will have to overbend it a little since it's an 8/12 pitch, and it will sit in tight up against the chimney. We will leave about 3 inches on either side and mark where the edge of the chimney is. Now we'll cut down through to the edge of the Z-lock. Cut that piece off. And we'll round back the face. We want to do this, of course, on both sides. Now remember, we're going to put plenty of sealant on before we nail this down. Set that down nice and tight and nail it in. The next shingle will lock into this and then under, lock in here, and then we'll lock under this shingle. We want to go over the flashing about 1 inch. Then we'll cut off this top lock so that it will slide in and slide up underneath this shingle. Catch your lock and slide it up. We will nail it into place. And again, this exposed nail will be sealed with a matching color of sealant. The same on the next shingle. Mark it where it will slide under. And give yourself 1 inch overlap on the end of the flashing. We'll lock it into place, slide it up. We'll snug this up and nail it in. Now we will seal any of these exposed nails. If a counter flashing is necessary, it will screw into the brick. After it is mounted, this little lip will take a bead of silicone.